Hello, welcome back to the channel 12 Step Guide with Troy O. Today we are going to begin step 7 in Alcoholics Anonymous. Big book, came out in 1939, although I'm going to refer a little bit to a later version because I'd rather target the language in that, and I'll explain better when we get there. So, step 7, in my opinion, is new beginnings, the beginning of living in the solution. That may be a surprise to some people. I'll refer to notes today. Today, I'd like to speak to the professionals as well as the recovering community as part of step 7. Step 7 is where Bill got mentally sober. And I'm going to show you exactly what day that happened. So, what is step 7? Humbly asked him being God, to remove our shortcomings. I'd like to just give a little description of my interpretation before we get started. Picture climbing a steep mountain, and that being steps 1 through 6. And it's a challenge climbing this mountain. But at some point, you get to the top, and there's a bit of a resting spot when you get to the top before you start heading down the other side. Now, the only way you get back from that, let's call that a success, the only way you undo that success is through real work. What do I mean by that? Well, go back to drinking and those behaviors that cause you to turn that yourself around, that vehicle around, and head back up that mountain and back down the first side. Let's take a look at the instinct in us. I'm just going to use a different example. You know that instinct that tells you the stove is hot? Don't touch it. Most people understand what that means. The stove's hot, don't touch it. Because if you do, you're going to get burned. Well, step 7 is where our instinct to drink gets repaired, where our instinct tells us, don't drink. If you do, you're going to get burned. Literally resetting our instinct so we can trust ourselves. Now, that didn't come easy. Real work was put into that. New beginnings. Some might think, well, I thought the new beginning was at step 1. Well, I'm here to tell you, I did step 1 down at the bar. So I disagree with that. There are people, that my mother, for example, she embraced step 1 off the bat, hooked up with great people in recovery, and really was able to move on with the steps. Maybe it would be true for her. But a relapser such as myself that had time in the program and then blew it, turned that vehicle around, went back up over the mountain the other side, and felt all the losses. So, the real new beginnings, repairing the instinct, that's step 7. And we're going to take a look at that today from Bill's perspective. There's not going to be a particularly lot of reading today. Step 7 is very light in the big book. In 98, I wrote 4 books. I'm going to read from one of those books today, a different book than what I read from the last time, just in an effort to open the mind a little bit. And we're going to look at Bill's story today, all in an effort to build a foundation so when we go to step 7 in the step book, we're going to have a much better understanding. We're going to start in the book Alcoholics Anonymous. Now I'm reading from the original book from 1939, and that's going to be page 88. If you have a newer book, it's around page 76. And I'm going to start with step 6. It's so short. If we can answer to our satisfaction, we then look at step 6. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can He now take them all, every one? Should we still cling to something we will not let go, we ask God to help us be willing. So that's the entirety of step 6. So what is, again, step 7? Humbly asked Him, God, to remove our shortcomings. So let's take a look at step 7 now. This is step 7. When ready, we say something like this: My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. We have then completed step 7. Right? By all means, throw out that prayer and you're on your way. There wasn't much information here. I commit to you that we're going to get there. And there's real reasons why. I don't mean to be facetious here. We're going to get into Bill's story. But before we get into Bill's story, I'm going to read out of it's short, what I wrote in 98, in an effort to broaden your mind a little more so we can see more of what is happening and where I was at with this in 98. So I'm going to read a little bit out of the Kids and Family. It was a alternative set of 12 steps that I had created, and I like this version because it's going to target some character defects. Before I read, though, in a previous video, I had made a comment about potentially becoming childlike in our pursuits at recovery. And I also made the comment that that childlike spirit in us could be very mature. So I wanted to speak a little bit more on that. So what do I mean by that? And I'd like to answer that in a question format. Who do you want to be around? Someone loaded with resentment, arrogance, and without reason? Or someone who is forgiving, open to new ideas, and reasonable? Our behavior influences others, especially if we are in a position of influence, and we all are in some manner. The child in us, before we get all screwed up, can be a very pleasant individual, and in adulthood to be able to achieve that, different than childish, to adopt some of those forgiving and free policies can be very helpful. All right, so in a book I wrote in 98, step 7, ask God to remove a wrong from us. The language changed a slight bit. At this point, we're going to do all we can to change. In some cases, we may be trying to let go of anger, greed, hate, selfishness, being dirty, swearing, spitting, being mean to others, stop stealing, hurting others, always being unhappy, lying, cheating, and more. Our higher power can help us change if we want. God can do for us what we can't do for ourselves, but it's important that we do all we can to change. We'll want to pray to have the problem removed. All we need to do is talk to our higher power and ask. We don't need to use fancy prayer that we don't even understand. Just talk to our loving God. The more we pray, the easier it is to let go of the problem, wrong, or shortcoming. If we struggle with the God concept, some do, I don't want to omit anyone from this recovery process, then we can pray and ask ourselves. This reminds us that we are willing to change. We may say, God, please help me to stop stealing. Please help me to be a better person. Please help me to not hurt others. I will try my hardest to be a better person. We can pray with each new problem. We cannot work on changing all of our problems at once. It is better to work on them one at a time. We can do step 6 and 7 over a period of time. Today, we can talk about the ways that we have changed or want to change. So it was a simple language in an effort for people to just understand the simplicity of the program, the simplicity of what we are trying to do. It isn't complicated. What's complicated is our individuals. What's complicated is facing our problems, facing the drivers, those feelings, things we don't understand within ourselves, in an effort to get to where we can adjust those instincts so that they work in our favor towards the best possible future outcome and not towards tearing ourselves apart and the people around us. I hope you found that helpful. So at this point, I want to go into Bill's story, because at this point, other than what I read there, the other was light on details. And I want to show you where Bill got mentally sober. Now, it's clear in the big book, Bill struggled to get this down on paper. He knew there was something happening. ABT didn't cover this part. The Oxford groups didn't appear to cover this, but Bill knew something was going on, and we're going to look at that today. We're going to look at the natural steps 6 and 7, but it also is a formal. In his case, he didn't have any hang-ups or hold-ups. There wasn't anybody telling him it couldn't happen this quickly. So let's take a look at that. All right, so Bill's story in the original book, page 23, it might be around page 13 in a newer version. Now, we know from where I'm going to start reading, we know Bill had already admitted to having taken step 1. He was drunk at the table when he admitted to that. He took step 2 then, and step 3 in treatment, and now he's in treatment. I don't know if he's 10 days sober or what. He's not sober that long. He's at the hospital. He's shaking off the DTs and all that after that bender, Armistice Day bender, likely having to do with the war. He was in World War I, and now he's at the hospital. And the reason I'm reading this is I'm going to show you 6 and 7, and I'm going to show you here where Bill did it, and I'm going to show you that Bill took step 7 in the hospital in treatment. Now, I was told do step 1, 2, and 3 in a year, and here's a guy that's 10 days sober, achieving step 7. So that's a huge contrast. Anyway, my schoolmate visited me. That's Ebby T at the table. That was now what we would understand as a sponsor. We're just covering this stuff real quick. We've read this before. I fully acquainted him with my problems and deficiencies. He was saying he doing a step 4 and 5 with him. We made a list of people I had hurt. That's step 8, or toward whom I felt resentment. That's a part of step 4. They're working on that together at the hospital. I expressed my entire willingness to approach these individuals. Well, that's step 9. We know step 8 is begun in step 4. So to approach these individuals, admitting my wrong. So he was willing to do that. Never was I to be critical of them. I was to write all such matters to the utmost of my ability. So this is the exchange led by Ebby T, who, by the way, now was 2.5 months sober from the Oxford group. So 2.5 months sober as sponsor, walking him through some Oxford group steps. So we're going to continue on a little bit. I'm going to move fairly quickly. We're going to cover some of this stuff at a later time, but I just need to cover it now to get you up to speed. So he just basically talked about steps 4 through 9 in some capacity. So moving on. I was to test my thinking by the new God consciousness within. So he's found some kind of a God. We've covered that earlier. He's had a considerable experience. You see the other videos on that. Common sense would thus become uncommon sense. Something's changed. I was to sit quietly when in doubt, asking only for direction and strength to meet my problems as he would have me. Step 11. Never was I to pray for myself except as my request bore on my usefulness to others. So he wasn't going to be selfish in his prayers. Then only might I expect to receive. But that would be in great measure. My friend, Ebby T, promised when these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my Creator, that I would have the elements of a way of living which answered all my problems. Belief in the power of God, plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility to establish and maintain the new order of things were the essential requirements. Simple, but not easy. A price had to be paid. It meant destruction of self-centeredness. I must turn in all things to the Father of light who presides over us all. Whatever your step 2 and 3 is, whatever your belief system is, however you get there, we've covered it to various avenues to understand how someone might progress down this avenue, regardless of their belief system. These were revolutionary and drastic proposals. But the moment I fully accepted them, the effect was electric. Again, now he's in treatment here. Maybe he's 10 days sober, maybe a little more, I don't know. There was a sense of victory, followed by such a peace and serenity as I had never known. So now, Bill, as a result of doing these challenging things that we've just covered in one sitting at the hospital, I'm going to say it again, there was a sense of victory, followed by such a peace and serenity as I had never known. Something has changed. There was utter confidence. Bill was, hey, look at that, that fearless self-confidence. Something's changing. I felt lifted up, as though the great clean wind of a mountaintop blew through and through. God comes to most men gradually. He's making an observation, but his impact on me was sudden and profound. Something dramatic happened to Bill. For a moment, I was alarmed and called my friend the doctor to ask if I were still sane. He listened in wonder as I talked. I want to read that again. For a moment, I was alarmed and called my friend the doctor to ask if I were still sane. He listened in wonder as I talked. Bill's probably floating around the hospital high as a kite on truth, on freedom, on real power to control and contain himself, on renewed instincts. He felt whole, he felt complete. This wasn't a high that you crash from. This is a high that the mind produces when good things happen. This is real. This is the intended way of life. There's a way to get there and a way to succeed at things. When you succeed at something, you get up over that mountain. You've got that success, and it shows up in you. It's not from a drink, from buckets, from drugs, from oversex, from destroying others, from hurting, lying, cheating, stealing. There's a real way to achieve these things. Because is that what you want? Do you want to feel better and feel good inside? Well, there's a way for that to happen. I called my doctor friend. Who is this doctor friend that he's talking about? Let's skip on over to the doctor's opinion and learn about who this individual is that's hearing, because now he's going to have some commentary. He's made some observations. Who's this individual making these observations? So in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, 1939, there's this doctor's opinion. In the original book, it was page 1. In 1955, it became Appendix 25, where I'm going to start. I'm not reading it all. I'm answering the question, who is this doctor that he's talking about, this doctor friend? Second paragraph down, to whom it may concern. I have specialized in the treatment of alcoholism for many years. This is the beginning of an answer to who this doctor is. In late 1934, I attended a patient who, in late 1934, Bill got sober in late 1934. I often use J1 of 1935 just as a rough estimate when I say 13 years before the step book come out. I attended a patient who, though he had been a competent businessman of good earning capacity, was an alcoholic of a type I had come to regard as hopeless. So he's treating a hopeless alcoholic. And in those days, they often just committed you for life at some point because there was no other real solution, not before Alcoholics Anonymous. In the course of his third treatment, so now this is the third time around. Bill's in this treatment center hospital for the third time. It ain't his first go around here. In the course of his third treatment, he acquired certain ideas concerning a possible means of recovery. Abby T. and Bill did step 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 in the hospital. He had already done steps 1, 2, and 3. This is in the hospital, 10 days sober. This isn't one step a year. You can pursue that avenue, but here's another avenue you can pursue if you want recovery, peace of mind, your life back. So, as part of his rehabilitation, he commenced to present his conceptions to other alcoholics. Step 12, impressing upon them that they must do likewise with still others. The alcoholic needs step 12. In our efforts in life since 1939 to help the alcoholic, we have interfered with that process to some degree, and we need to restore that as best as we can if we want this process at every level to work. That's right from Dr. Silkworth. That's what he's saying, in my opinion. This has become the basis of a rapidly growing fellowship of these men and their families. This man and over 100 others appear to have recovered. So this is the first 100 from the Alcoholics Anonymous, and this is the original Dr. William D. Silkworth. I'm jumping forward some. The subject presented in this book seems to me to be of paramount importance to those afflicted with alcoholic addiction. I say this after many years' experience as medical director. So he's not just a doctor, he's the medical director at this hospital, of one of the oldest hospitals in the country, treating alcoholic and drug addiction. This guy is the real deal, in my opinion, and I've worked in the field. There was therefore a sense of real satisfaction when I was asked to contribute a few words on a subject which is covered in such masterly detail in these pages. And there's the basics of who Dr. Silkworth is. Now we're back at Bill's story. This information is so subtle and goes by so quick that if I didn't get all torqued up and wound up and excited about it, it can be so easily missed. And it's important that we don't miss it and see the real value and see what happened, lest somebody convinces you got to stay on step one for a year, or even convinces the medical professionals at the hospital that that's what they recommend. It's not what Bill recommended, I assure you. Anyway, for a moment, I'm going to recover just the slightest, the last paragraph. For a moment, I was alarmed and called my friend, the doctor. Now we know who the doctor is, to ask if I were still sane, because something's going on with Bill here. He listened in wonder as I talked. The head doctor at one of the oldest hospitals in the country, many years, is sitting there wondering what the hell's just happened, because it didn't come from the doctor. And it's not because he was in detox or anything they did. Something else has happened. So next paragraph. Finally, he shook his head, saying, he being the doctor, something has happened to you. Something has happened to you I don't understand. But you had better hang on to it. Anything is better than the way you were. The good doctor now sees many men who have such experiences. He knows they are real. Now, it could be easy to just say, oh, he just had a moment here. Look, here's a guy that just dumped his whole life story out to somebody else in great detail, the pains, everything, a significant process, no matter who you are, where you are, what you are. You go ahead and try that and see how you feel after. I'm telling you, it's a considerable event that he just did. It just so happens he did it in treatment. And now, what's going on here? What's happening? He's at step 7. He's having a spiritual awakening, a spiritual experience. His instincts are being restored. His obsession to drink is being removed. He can feel it in him. I can tell you this, when I was down at the bar after doing a 90 meetings in 90 days and then went back to drinking because things were all screwed up, and well, I wasn't doing the steps. I was stuck on step 1. Boy, that's when I figured out down at the bar I could do step 1 just fine. And the days progressed, and the little bit of gain that I did, succeed at, I could tell you I felt that slipping away. It's a strange experience to just feel that stuff slipping away from you. You don't realize what you have until you lose it. So, and I want to sort of recap some of what's going on here. You know, some of the steps Bill has done. He's clearly up to step 7 now. He's 8, we know, has begun in step 4. He's willing to do 9. And this experience that's happening to him, he said, most people it comes slower. For him, it came very powerfully. The doctor suggested that it's something he wants to hold on to. And, well, how does he do that? How can the professionals help us do that? And some things it happens, having AA meetings right there at the treatment center. What's other ways? The alcoholic, they need the higher steps to hold on to it. Yes, he's going to make amends in 9. Step 10 is going to be the daily stuff, prayer, meditation, and 11. And that step 12 is a very important step now. The step 12 is the one that, when that stock deal went bad out there in Akron, Ohio, when Bill was heading for the bar and bounced off the barroom doors and went and got Dr. Bob and returned us Alcoholics Anonymous and gave me my life. Step 12. We need it. We need it at the hospital right there in the intake when possible. We need it at every step of the way. We need those steps coming right out of the gate. A beginning is very, very important. The doctor made the observations. He allowed Bill to do that reluctantly. If you read, I'm not going to read the doctor's opinion, but it's how it unfolded. So how can the professionals help, in my opinion? Again, I've been in the field as a corrections counselor. The protocol wasn't to teach them the 12 steps, so I didn't teach them the 12 steps in the corrections groups. I had another program, education prevention. The protocol wasn't to teach the steps there. Others weren't teaching the steps. So where are these being learned? So let's just look at the natural step 6. The natural research via, am I an alcoholic? That's not happening at step 1. Am I an alcoholic? That's an evaluation done, a basic evaluation. You're reasoning stuff out. Well, that's a 4, 5, 6. A formal would begin you back at step 1. But that process, am I, while you're drinking, stuff like that, failure can be imminent, brutal, and final. Whereas the formal step 1 through 6, that can happen right there in treatment. It's historical. It's already happened, or it's happening. Doesn't feel good. However, good can come from it as we begin steering the ship and controlling and unloading the merchandise. We're in more control in this process. It represents real power and control. We have the power to reprogram ourselves toward the betterment of mankind or towards the destruction of it. We have that power. I want to visit some basic ideas. Step 1, I want to contemplate a couple of questions because it was so much bad information or just lack of understanding. And I get that. There was one sentence in the whole big book about how Bill took step 1 when he was drunk, with EBT making an observation about both of them, and it had long since happened. It's so subtle that it's easily missed. And instead we look for something that maybe isn't there. let's take another crack at it. Maybe some more testimony is going to loosen us up a little bit. How about we go back to Bill's story when EBT shows up? First, Bill can't stand himself. Lois sure as hell don't want to be around him. He's a pig drunk. He ain't having a good time. He's dying. He's out of his mind. He's a waste product. I'll tell you this. When that showed up in the meeting back in the day, something like that showed up, everybody was like, "What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be in treatment?" They were offended because we don't have the opportunity to see that disaster walk through the AA doors usually because there is treatment, especially if they're disrupting the meeting. But you know what? He was in the right place. It's just that we don't see that in step 12 so much now unless we do the work, unless we become EBT. So let's take a look. So Bill's wasted. Ebby calls, says, "I'm coming over." He's the only one that wants to see him. Ebby shows up. A miracle, a friggin' miracle walks through the front door. Why do I say that? Well, let's review what Bill says. Let's get this in the context as how it is. Let's see it through the eyes of the real drunk that is just almost dead. But my friend sat before me at the table, kitchen table, and he made the point blank declaration that God had done for him what he could not do for himself. His human will had failed. This is Bill's remembrance, his observations of remembering EBT. Doctors had pronounced him incurable. EBT was incurable, last he knew. Society was about to lock him up. This guy was just the end stage. And I understand what that is because that was me, just younger. Like myself, he had admitted complete defeat. Now we know that's step 1. But I'm going somewhere else today. All right? We're witnessing step 7. And it's difficult to just see step 7 alone without seeing the other steps. They're a collection of something that comes together. Then he had, in effect, been raised from the dead. Bill is looking at this miracle from across the table. I'll tell you what, Bill is not euphoric today. That's for shit sure. He's freaking out of his mind. Do you remember the day when you were out of your mind? Suddenly, taken from the scrap heap to a level of life better than the best he had ever known. EBT's 2 months sober. Bill's making this observation. It's easy to dismiss, "Oh, he's only 2 months sober. How can this be?" You know what? At this point, Bill would have taken 2 days sober if he could have gotten it, and it would have been a gold mine for him. That's the way it is when you're there. He's witnessing a miracle, and it's cutting through the alcohol. It's it's showing up. It's got real power here, right before Bill's eyes. Had this power originated in him? So Bill's looking at something he don't understand. Obviously it had not. There had been no more power in him than there was in me at that minute. And this was none at all. He's looking at step 2, this power. You need the power to change, not powerless. And there's real power out there if you want it. That floored me. It began to look as though those religious people were right after all. Here was something at work in a human heart which had done the impossible. More of Bill's observations. This is impossible what he's looking at. My ideas about miracles. He's looking at a miracle, and it's very clear to him. Were drastically revised right then. Never mind the musty past. Here sat a miracle directly across the kitchen table. He shouted great tidings. Now there's step 1 and step 2 in there, but Bill is observing these character defects having been removed. The obsession to drink having been removed. This restoration of life, Bill doesn't understand it, but he's sober at this point in his mind. It's cut through the alcohol. I don't give a shit how much he was drinking. He's pretty clear-minded right now. He understands something miraculous has happened, and he wants it. So now that we have hopefully a better context, why don't we go back and take a look again at what Bill wrote in step 7 and see if we can derive some more meaning from it. I encourage the individual, if you can see pieces in here, if you can see the pieces, you build on them. Don't let people take that confidence away from you. Only you know if you can see it with clarity and if it's helping you and you're building on these little pieces. So in both of these examples, these live, real examples of the development of the program Alcoholics Anonymous, I've been able to show you the observation of what step 7 looks like, but how did we get there? What is quite step 7? We're still working on building that. We're going to build on that far more in the step book. I'm going to jump around a little bit today, but right now we're going to come back to step 6. I'm going to try and answer that question, and I hope that you're in a much better position to hear it and see it now. So if we're ready and can answer with certain satisfaction, we then look at step 6. We have emphasized willingness, so we know to do 7 is going to require willingness as being indispensable. We're now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable. A couple of things there. What is God for you? What is the higher power? The things which we admitted are objectionable. These are things that we are aware of. This isn't just magic. We've done real work to identify exactly the things that we are aware of that we find objectionable. So we're playing a big part here, and we're well informed. Some things fell from us in step 4 and 5. They just did. But these heavier things, can he now take them all? Every one? Every one being those things we are aware of and we are trying to get rid of. It's not everything, just, he's just going to sweep it all away. Should we still cling to something we will not let go, we ask God to help us be willing. There's going to be things that just don't go the first time out. We're going to have to put real work into it. And that's okay, even if that means relapse. Have we lost everything and starting at step 1? I hope not. My goodness, the wealth of information that's here to help you figure out what went wrong. It's not brand new. When ready, now this is step 7. Now this is, we got to be ready. We want this. This isn't happening without us. We say something like this: my creator. So how might that translate? Maybe it's God. Maybe it's your program. Intelligent design. We're here by chance. Well, pray to by chance if that's going to help you out. Maybe by chance got you this far, can get you further. Your internal subconscious and conscious, maybe in meditation, get them communicating with each other to restore that instinct. So it says if you drink, you're going to get burned. Whatever works for you individually. The designer. Look at We are capable of changing. And what do I mean by that? Well, you know what? If you want to learn how to be a welder, you go to school and you learn how to weld. Next thing you've changed, you've become this welder. And in other things, college, we can change, we can grow, we can develop. Well, we can recover too and do all those things if we recover. I couldn't without. I had beginnings, and I'll tell you, all that was just going away. The brain was just losing. Anyway, my creator. I am now willing. Willingness. We're now willing. We're at step 7. We know what we are trying to remove, and we are willing. That you should have all of me. Good and bad. There's some faith there. There's some trust here. Just take it all and let's try and work with it. Get it away from me for now, because I've been doing such a good job with it. Whatever that is for you, I pray you're asking, you're presenting a proposal, an understanding that prayer, a direction, wherever that's going, you got to be clear with what you're trying to achieve. That you now remove from me every single defect of character. Now, this language, every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. It's easy to think that he's saying every single defect here, God, just sweep it all away. Bullshit. Everything that we have worked towards, we've identified as a problem, we are trying to get rid of, and we are ready to get rid of, and there's a plan around that. And we're working on that. This is step 7. We've put the work in, we're ready. It's not just magic. And what's this usefulness to you and my fellows? Well, maybe you're not going to be selfish anymore. Maybe you're going to give a shit more about people and life than you do about drinking. Maybe as this change happens where there's purpose and meaning in life, a reason to live, to care, there's more out there, taking interest in something else. Because while alcohol maybe offered that in the beginning, out partying, a bunch of people and all that at the end, is that... Yeah. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. To do your bidding. I'm going to point to step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening, having had an experience not unlike Bill, and not unlike EBT, and not unlike myself. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we carry this message to others and practice these principles in all of our affairs. We have then completed step 7. And what did that mean for Bill? The obsession to drink left him. In this case, he was going to move on to step 8 and start working on cleaning up that list more and get more willingness to go in and start apologizing to people and stuff. But again, this is early on. You're looking at a person that was 2 months sober and another person that maybe was 10 days sober. This stuff can happen early, or it can be delayed. It's up to you. We're on the way to the solution here. Step 7 is the solution. We're living in the solution now. Now we're living in recovery. It's not identifying the problem anymore. That was 1 through 6. Just figuring out the problem. Now we are living in the solution, 7 through 12. We can get there early on, because there's such a thing as being dry. Yeah, you're not drinking, maybe restless, irritable, and discontent. There's such a thing as being mentally sober. Bill got mentally sober at the hospital. Something remarkable changed. And we're going to build on that more. There's additional pieces Bill got to realizing. Well, we'll look at that. But for now, we're just understanding step 7, the foundation. Now we're going to go from here into the step book, step 7. 13 years later, Bill had plenty to say about step 7, and we will look that stuff over. I'll certainly use commentary to try to use additional examples in my own experience. It's where the obsession to drink is removed. That happens at step 7. Whether it's natural or whether it's formal, it happens at step 7. The better you know that, the better you know where you're at in the process. Some might be further along than they realize. In relapsers, there's a wealth of information in step 4 and 5 you can look at to understand what keeps going wrong and how to get there. And you can get there. You need to be at step 7 through 12, but to get there, you got to go up one side of the mountain to be able to come down the other. It's worth it. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Ring the bell to be notified when new content is added. Also, you can support the channel 12-Step Guide with Troyo by donating through PayPal to hsworldservice@yahoo.com. In Step 7, we humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. Step 7 represents new beginnings where recovery is achievable. With the aid of our higher power, we can move beyond our failures and begin living in the solution. We are empowered to make an honest and sincere attempt to become what we could be. We shift our focus to building a new life without the obsession we identified in Step 1.